Access to Democracy is made possible by donations from the following organizations. Thomson Reuters, a global company with expertise and insight to unravel complex situations in the areas of law, tax, compliance, government, and media. Their worldwide network of journalists and editors keep customers up to speed on relevant global events. Thomson Reuters, the answer company. The division championship Minnesota Twins are looking to go all the way to the World Series in 2024. Bolstered by inspirational shortstop Carlos Correa, a healthy Brian Buxton, and rookie phenom Royce Lewis, plus a pitching staff led by Pablo Lopez and an outstanding bullpen featuring Johan Duran, the Twins are the best bargain in the major leagues, and Target Field is the best venue in baseball. Sheridan Dulas & Kins, PA, a family and criminal defense law firm, has been serving clients in Dakota County and throughout Minnesota for over 40 years. Ranked a Tier 1 Best Law Firm by U.S. News and World Report every year since 2009, Sheridan Dulas & Kins are here to help you in your most difficult life circumstances. Established in 2007, 45th Parallel Spirits was among the first 50 micro-distilleries in the United States. Based in New Richmond, Wisconsin, all aspects of production occur at our facility. If you're interested in visiting and learning more about the 45th Parallel Distillery, please check our website and plan a visit to tour our facility and taste our spirits. Truestone Financial, with locations in Minnesota and Wisconsin, has proudly served its members since 1939. Truestone engages, educates, and supports its members to ensure they have the tools to empower their financial well-being. Truestone Financial, your neighborhood credit union. Learn more at truestone.org.
Welcome to Access Democracy. This is Alan Miller with you again, sporadically these days. We have a return guest, a favorite guest, someone who's probably been here as many as any of the guests that we've had over the years, since 2002.
Yeah, that's when I was up for election.
Justice Paul Anderson retired from the Minnesota Supreme Court and certainly a nationally recognized jurist. Now,
before you start, Alan, I'll wait. You tell the topic and then I'll respond to that.
All right. Today is January 3rd, 2025, the day that the new Congress is sworn in. And after a contentious start, I can say that the Congress does have a speaker. The speaker is Paul Ryan, who was the speaker.
Not Paul Ryan. I mean, he's
not
past
Paul
his...
Ryan, Paul.
See, you are wishing for Paul Ryan because he looks so good compared to Johnson. Yeah.
A repetition of Mike Johnson, as I said, the successor to Paul Ryan.
Yes. You're probably wishing for Sam Rayburn again, aren't you?
And I'm wishing for just about anybody.
Or maybe McCormick.
And they're taking the oath of office today. The entire Congress will be taking the oath, which is described as a solemn promise, often invoking a divine witness regarding one's future action or behavior. Now, Samuel Butler in the 1600s said, "Oaths are but words, and words are wind." But here's the oath that our Congress, United States Congress, is taking today. "I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which I am about to enter. So help me God." I have a lot of reservations about whether half the members of Congress really will adhere to those words. Justice Anderson.
Well, let's begin by saying you have some empirical data to express your skepticism. I don't want to label you as a cynic, but I think you have a right to be skeptical whether they're going to adhere to that oath of office. Well, first of all, oaths are very, very important in our democratic society. And you swear or you affirm to support the Constitution and faithfully discharge the duties. But the important thing is that in our democratic society, we don't have a king. Some people want to be king, but we don't.
Some people think that they're king.
Yeah, we have elected officials. And the power in our democratic society, sovereignty, comes from the people. And so when they're taking that oath in Congress, they're swearing and affirming to the people of these United States that they are going to do their job faithfully and honestly, and they will support the Constitution.
And the Constitution is so important.
Well, that's the contract that the people have with those people who sit in governing positions. I mean, it's a social contract, as John Locke said, and is that there are obligations, and those people who we give power to, sovereign power to, have to pledge that they will adhere to that contract, that Constitution.
See, one of my reservations is that I felt that in the last Congress, the Constitution was ignored by a good many members of Congress, and for that matter, by our Supreme Court, and some of the decisions that were made and some of the legislation that was passed. And I think it was to the detriment of this country and to our standing in the world.
So here's an irony. I won't disagree with you that you say any number of people occupying all three branches appear that they are not adhering to their oath. Yet, just a couple of days ago, Chief Justice Roberts went on the record as condemning those people who won't support the Constitution. I think he was aiming at President-elect Vance, who said that, well, we don't have to follow the decisions of the United States Supreme Court.
President-elect, Vice President.
And trust me, I've served on the Supreme Court. I have to read their opinions. I have to follow them when they apply. It's sometimes hard to do, but I took an oath that I have to support the Constitution. Constitutionally, the court exists, and so I had to follow it.
It was pretty shocking to me that Vance, who was going to be the vice president, one breath away from the presidency, could say that we don't have to follow court decisions all the time. The fact of the matter is, that's what this country is built on: precedent and really following
the rule of law.
The rule of law.
And but let me reel back a little bit, is that it is important. I mean, I've appeared on your show in a sport coat without any tie. When we were asking me today talking about I put on a suit and tie because we're talking about one of the most solemn acts of our government, where people swear on an oath, often on a Bible. I was maybe going to bring my family Bible, which I took the oath on, and they say that they are going to do what the Constitution requires them to do, because their power comes from the people through the Constitution, and they have to say, I will honor that. And what is it to take an oath? There's a play, Sir Robert Bolt movie. I think Katharine Hepburn was in it, about Sir Thomas More. And Sir Thomas More was a friend of Henry VIII, appointed to him as Chancellor. But More would not condone Henry's divorce. And Henry wanted a divorce. He wanted a male heir. And so he sent Sir Thomas More to the Tower under the threat of death. And this scene in the movie, in the play, is there's Moore's son, her daughter Meg was there, son-in-law was there, the wife was there. And Meg is pleading with her father, pleading with him, Father, all you have to do is allow the king to do the divorce. And Sir Thomas More says, but I took an oath, Meg. And she says, but Father, what is the oath but the words? And this is where he said to me, Meg, taking an oath is like putting your soul in your hands, like water. And if you violate that oath, if you ever let your fingers spread and let the water through, or your integrity go through, you want ever to recover it again. So I have taken an oath, and I will not let that oath slip through my fingers. And see, that's what I think you're putting your point on, is there are too many people that are letting the oath slip through their fingers, not following it.
They follow Samuel Butler in the 1600s, who said oaths are just words. And the fact of the matter is, they are not just words. They are pledges.
They
to
are
follow
pledges.
Whatever it happens to be, in our case, the Constitution of the United States, which is very specific. And our courts have gotten away from the Constitution in many respects in this last term, including saying that a president is above the law. That's no place in the Constitution. That's in the imagination of 6 justices. And it really, really, really bothers me.
It's very, but I'm going to reel back a little bit to the question is, how did we get here? That we have a Supreme Court that has members on it who can do this. And that's where I've written an editorial, and it's about Mitch McConnell. You see that Justice Scalia died on the 12th or 13th of February in 2016, okay? 11 months left in the Obama administration. The Senate, clearly under the Constitution, is given the directive to advise and consent to the nominees submitted by the president. You know what Mitch McConnell said? Well, it's only 11 months until there's a new president. It's too little time. And so they
flew in the face of precedent, by the way.
Precedent, and more importantly, flew in the face of the Constitution that he had sworn on his oath to support. He would not even give Merrick Garland a hearing because Garland had pretty good credentials, and he knew that it would be a disaster for him, so he wouldn't give him a hearing. Now, but I'm going to bring that forward.
You're going to bring it forward to Amy
Coney Barrett,
right?
Who died the 3rd week of September in the...
Were you talking about Ruth Bader Ginsburg?
Yes,
died.
She died in the 3rd week of... And so, now, this is so difficult for me to even talk about and get my head around.
3 weeks till the end of the term.
Well, yes.
And McConnell shoved that nomination through.
Yeah, Ginsburg died in September, and by the end of October, within less than 2 months, he had the Senate confirm Amy Coney Barrett. After he had said that in February there was not enough time for the president. I mean, it's so blatantly hypocritical, but more than that, as we're talking about oaths, it is a clear violation of his oath.
It's so antagonistic to everything that he allegedly stood for, and it will be his legacy.
It will be his legacy. So I'm going to tell you, I swivel in my chair, but I hope I don't mess up the camera, is that as I told you, I take oaths very seriously. And I have taken the oath of office probably a half dozen times, and I have given it dozens of times. I have been asked to swear in the Speaker of the Minnesota House of Representatives and the members of the House of Representatives. So I'm invited to come over for the swearing-in ceremony. The assistant clerk comes over and says, well, all you have to do is read the oath, and they're going to say, I do, I will. I said, I don't do it that way. What do you mean you don't do it that way? I said, these are public officials who are swearing to the people of the state of Minnesota they will do their job. And the only way I'll do it is for them to state that oath out loud. Well, the clerk was just beside himself, because this is not the way they did it. And he said that, well, I got to talk to the chief clerk, which he did. And then he talked to Margaret Anderson Kelleher, who was going to be the speaker. So Margaret, who was a friend, came out and she said, Paul, if that's the way you do it, that's the way we're going to do it. So I read the oath, but I had her repeat it out loud to me in front of her fellow House members and the public, because she was swearing her oath to them, not saying I will or whatever. She needed to articulate out loud what she was swearing to do. Then I had the whole chamber repeat after me.
Repeat after me, and the entire oath.
They declared to the citizens of Minnesota they would do their job.
Which I understand they're still doing today.
Oh, yeah. No, they liked it. They liked the change because, it...
And perhaps maybe that's what we should get Congress to do instead of just raising their right hand.
Yeah, I know.
Because maybe the words would impart themselves on their brains.
Well, there's something about saying the words to this oath as opposed to saying I will. There's just kind of a, is it an extra turn of the screw, so to be, it's extra ratcheting up of the obligation that they're seeing. I'm sorry if I get off and seem like I'm kind of on the deep end on oaths, but I just see them as so important. Now, oaths can be given in many different ways. Is that most of the time you put your right hand on the Bible and raise your left hand and swear on the Bible. Doesn't have to be on the Bible. A big controversy arose when Keith Ellison was elected to the House. He is a Muslim. And so everybody said, well, the tradition in the House is we swear on the Bible. What is Keith Ellison?
He swore on the Koran.
You know whose Koran he used? Thomas Jefferson's. They found out that the National Archives had 2 copies of the Koran that belonged to Thomas Jefferson. He asked if one of those could be brought over to the House and he could swear his oath on the Quran. Now, why do you do it on the Bible or on the Quran? Is that it's a symbol that you're making this oath not only to the people who you're going to serve with, but to a higher authority that you're answerable to. And so help me God. There's a little debate as to how that got in there, but most people think that George Washington added, so help me God, when he finished the oath and he kissed the Bible.
The fact of the matter is that there are atheists and agnostics who are also elected to office.
Yeah.
And in their case, they can give an affirmation.
Yes.
They don't have to say, so help me God, but they can give an affirmation instead of the oath. I think probably Quakers would give the affirmation rather than an oath. But it has the same force and effect.
It has the same force and effect. And see...
Or it should have.
It does. But see, the thing is, by doing it that way, they are affirming the very document that they're swearing to uphold, the Constitution. The Constitution grants the freedom of religion. We all wind up seeing God, if God exists, somewhat different from you and I have a different vision of God. It doesn't mean that we're less religious. But our country accepts
Well, I'm married to her, but I mean...
Yeah, I know that. And you worship her. I've seen that. But is that if you are an atheist, the Constitution says you can affirm to the people in a separate, different way. So I hope, I truly do hope, I'm going to go beyond today and the reconstituting of the Congress, that when the president-elect stands and swears to take the oath, he will be changing his mind with respect to his belief as to whether or not he has an obligation to fulfill the Constitution. Now, it's not me willy-nilly expressing this concern. He has himself, through act and deed, said the Constitution is not something that I have to follow. He has to know and understand that his power comes from the people, and the people give it through him under the Constitution, and he has to follow that contract, that agreement with the people. And I fear, based on his past acts and deeds, he will not be seriously swearing to do what he says he'll do. It's like it's like he's going to be just checking another box on his way to power.
And under our separation of powers, we always had the Supreme Court, at least, to check on illegal or improper actions by the executive branch, and certainly the judicial branch is important. And most of our courts really have judges that are really dedicated to do that. But I believe that our Supreme Court has gotten away from that in this last term, and I believe that they have invoked things that are clearly not constitutional, clearly were not really anticipated by the founders of this nation.
Now, Alan, it sounds to me like you have gone back and read the Federalist Papers, which were written at the time the Constitution was adopted. And in particular, you read what this esteemed founder, Alexander Hamilton, said about the judiciary. And what he said is how important an independent judiciary is in a civil democratic society like ourselves. And I love his language. It's 18th century. He said, the reason we need an independent judiciary, because it will serve as a bulwark, that's a bulwark against the ill humors of society that may emanate from the people themselves. That is a pretty heavyweight statement. You need an independent judiciary because it has to be, just as you said, a bulwark. And he recognized that in a civil democracy, there are ill humors that can emanate from the people themselves.